Hello and welcome to another CF PowerScripts tutorial with me, Christian Rauchenwald. Now in this video I'm going to show you how you can set up Facebook custom conversions in your funnels at ClickFunnels using our Facebook custom conversions PowerScript. And in order to get started, as always, you will need to log into your CF PowerScripts account. And from the CF PowerScripts dashboard, simply head to the PowerScripts section where you will see a list of your funnels and select the funnel where you want to add your custom events to. Now I'm going to pick our demo funnel here, and as you can see, I already have a bunch of different scripts set up, including the basic Facebook pixel integration. It's important to know that our custom events tracking only works if you're also using our Facebook pixel integration. If you don't have the Facebook pixel PowerScript yet set up for your funnel, then please stop watching this video and head to the Facebook pixel tutorial first and set up the Facebook pixel accordingly. And once you have that in place, just click on Add New and search for Facebook and select the Facebook Custom Events PowerScript. And as you might notice, this PowerScript actually has a lot of different settings which I will explain throughout this video. However, before we get to that, here in this specific place, so to the funnel specifically, we actually don't want to enable any custom events. So we're going to set this to don't track, this to don't track, and those both here to no. Because when you add it to the funnel specifically, you're basically doing so you are able to use those two features here, which allow you to trigger custom events when people click on a certain button or text link, for example. And the other features are more step specific, so we're going to add the same script throughout this video to other funnel steps as well to basically show you the benefits and function of each of the supported features. So with this set to don't track, we simply click on Add Script to add the Facebook Custom Conversions PowerScript to our funnel. So now the first thing I'm going to show you is how you can actually use this here to basically trigger custom events when people click on certain buttons or links within your funnel. And for that, we'll have to open a page in the ClickFunnels page editor. So I'm going to pick our welcome page here, and then here simply click on the shortcut next to Step Pages, so to the page specifically, and click on Open in Page Editor. Now in CF PowerScripts, if we go back here and we go back to the funnel itself and we click on Edit for the custom event script, so we have the text that we can use here. I'm just going to copy the longer one here and then go back to the page editor. Now as you can see on this funnel step, we have 3 different buttons. And when we click on one of those buttons and then go to the Get CSS Info function in the bottom right corner, so the hashtag icon, you can see that it's already set up as CFPS-FB-track-reCAPTCHA v2. And that's basically the way it should be. But there are 2 different options. The first one is that you write CFPS-FB-track- your event name. So in this case, it again was reCAPTCHA v2. The second one would be that you write CFPS-FB-track-VB- your event name, so in this case reCAPTCHA v2. Now that VB here stands for value based, and it means when the event triggers, it will also be reported with a value of 1 cent in whichever currency you have entered in here. Now you might wonder why you want to do that, and the answer is that if you want to use lookalike audiences or create lookalike audiences based on a specific event, that event actually has to have a value, because you can only use value-based events for lookalike audiences. So if you plan to create a lookalike audience based on people that clicked on a certain button, so Facebook would then look for people that are similar to those people that performed that action, then you would need to enter this with VB here. Otherwise, you don't have to do that, and you would just have it like this. Again, CFPS-FB-track- your event name, and click on Update. Now I already have also the other 2 buttons set up here. So if we look here, you can see that it says CFPS-FB-track-never-bounce. And last but not least, if we look here, you can see that it says CFPS-FB-track-x-verify. So those 3 buttons will each trigger a different event depending on which one the user clicks on. Now I'm going to click Save here. And in order to test that, we just go back to CF PowerScripts, go here. We click on the shortcut next to this funnel step here where we just configured it, and basically copy the live funnel step URL, head to Facebook's Events Manager. There I'm going to just clear the activity from the previous recording that I did and paste the URL in here. Make sure obviously that you have the right Facebook pixel selected and click on Open Website. Now we can already see in the Facebook Pixel Helper that it triggered the page view and the view content event based on the Facebook Pixel Power Script. And in the Events Manager, we can also see the page view and view content event, both with the additional parameters that our Facebook Pixel Power Script provides for all events. Now, if we go back to the Funnels tab, and here now we click on Opt-in with Recapture, we can see in the Facebook's Events Manager that the Recapture custom event triggered. And again, because it's using our Power Script, it also has all the additional information. So if I would create or trigger a Recapture V2 event on different pages or funnel steps, I could then use the additional data, so the page ID, step ID, or funnel ID, to filter on which funnel step or page specifically the event occurred. After that, we see the page view and the view content event of the following funnel step, which would be this one here, which is our demo opt-in page containing a Recapture V2 integration, also using CF Power Scripts. Now, if we go back to our first page, we will again see the view content and page view event here for our demo welcome page. And if we now click on Never Bounce, for example, and we go to the Events Manager, we can see the same thing happening. However, this time it triggers the Never Bounce event. And that's how easy you can track different events when a user clicks on a specific button or text link within your funnel step. Now, last but not least, to show you how it works with text links, it pretty much is the exact same thing. So within the ClickFunnels page editor, if you would have a text, I'm just going to duplicate this one and let's say click here to continue, and I'm going to turn this into a link. So let's say https google.com, and we're going to say open a new tab. And now what you can do with the text element here, you can right click on settings, again go to get CSS info and change this here, as we've learned, CFPS minus FB minus track minus, in this case, let's say value based, so minus VB, and let's say clicked Google link, and update this. So now that we have this link here in place, I'm going to save the changes and go back to our funnel step. Now, when we refresh the page here, it might not show the link instantly because ClickFunnels sometimes takes a couple of minutes for the page to update. However, we can just write question mark and then some random characters to basically provide an additional parameter, which will force the page to create a new page for that specific version of the URL. In the Events Manager, we also notice again the page view event with now this special question mark ASDAD that we added here. And back on the page, if we now click the button to continue, it opens Google like we've set it up. And in the Events Manager, we can see the custom event clicked Google link. And in this case, it's reported with a value of $1 because we added it as CFPS minus FB minus track minus VB for value based. And in the CF Power Script settings for the custom events Facebook script, we defined the currency as US dollars. Now that's one potential use case for the Facebook custom events Power Script, but that's by far not all. So as mentioned, like shown in this video, you should add the Facebook custom events Power Script once to the entire funnel without using any of the settings here or the settings down below here, simply to provide the functionality in your entire funnel to trigger events on certain button clicks or link clicks. Now I'm going to remove the link that we added here from this page real quick and save the changes before we move on to more advanced features that this Power Script offers. Now the next possible use case would be, for example, if you think about an opt-in page or an application page or an order form, you might want to trigger an event already when the user starts typing into a form, so before they even submit the order. Because if you think about it, if we stick with an order form, a user that starts entering his name and his email and so on, but eventually doesn't buy, is still more likely to convert with retargeting than somebody who just looked at the page but didn't do anything. So for this purpose, I'm going to scroll down and select the order forms funnel step that I have here. And again, you would want to add that Power Script specifically to that funnel step. Or if you're running a split test like I have it set up here, you might want to, for example, trigger different events on your control and your variation page. Then you would go to the page and add the script there. Now I'm going to just click here on Add New and again look for the Facebook Custom Events Power Script. And in this case, the feature we want to focus on is the so-called data input setting here. So I'm going to disable the open pop-up feature. And for the data input, I'm going to say that I want to trigger the initiate checkout event. Again, I have the option to track it value-based so that I'm able to create lookalike audiences based on people that are similar to those that started the data input. So I'm going to turn this to yes, and I'm click on Add Script. Now to test that, I'm going to copy the URL of the regular order form page here. So I'm just going to right-click copy live URL. Again, I can close those two tabs, head to the Events Manager, clear my activity, just paste the URL and open the live funnel website. Now in the Events Manager, we will see in a second basically that we again have the page view and view content event for that specific page load. And in the Pixel Helper, we can obviously see the same. Now if we go to the order form, here everything is already filled in, which obviously shouldn't be the case for your users. But if I click in one of those fields and I start typing, so for example, in this case, I would remove a letter. We notice in the Pixel Helper that a new event triggered, and in the Event Manager we can also see that the initiate checkout event got forwarded to Facebook with a value of $1 and the additional information that CF PowerScript forwards for all Facebook events by default. So that covers another aspect or another function that the Facebook Custom Events PowerScript has to offer, but it doesn't end there. If we go back again to CF PowerScripts and then basically close this here, go back to the funnel, and in this case I'm going to pick the sales page that's not finished yet, and here I'm going to add again the Facebook Custom Events PowerScript, and we don't want to trigger anything on data input, but in this case we want to trigger an event when the user opens the pop-up. So let's say we call this event contact, and we are not tracking this one value based. So I'm going to just click on Add Script. Again, clicking on the shortcut, copying the live funnel step URL, closing that page that we don't need anymore, going to the Events Manager, clearing the activity, pasting the URL in here and opening our sales page. Now when we scroll down here, we notice that there is a button, but before I click on that, we're going to quickly verify in the Events Manager that both events have been recorded. So again, the page view event and the view content event, both again are triggered by the regular Facebook Pixel PowerScript. Now back on the funnel step, if we click on this button here, it will open a pop-up as we can see, and if we check in the Events Manager, we can see that that triggered also the contact event. So basically we reported to Facebook a specific event for people that manually opened the pop-up. It would not trigger if the pop-up is automatically opened on page exit. So it gives you control depending on the content of your pop-up to fire specific events and then either retarget users differently, or if you trigger that event value-based, you could again build a lookalike audience of people that are similar to those that opened your pop-up. Now that already should provide you with a lot of additional features or possibilities in order to improve your audiences or your tracking. However, as said, it doesn't stop there. So when we go back to CF PowerScripts, and we're going to stay on the sales page for now and close this pop-up and click on Edit for the Custom Events PowerScript, and you will notice that there's a section called Additional Events. And what you can do here, you can set up different events that trigger either after a certain period of time, after the user scrolled a certain amount of pixels, or a certain amount of pixels is already visible on the page, after the user scrolled a certain percentage, or once an element is completely visible on the user's screen. We're going to start with the first one here and the trigger after X seconds, and we're going to say, like, for example, viewed 5 seconds, and I'm going to say the setting here would then be 5 for seconds. The optional parameters field would allow you to forward and attach additional parameters, and you would have to do so by writing them as a JavaScript object. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you likely don't need that. However, to show you an example, if we would want to track, for example, I don't know, an additional field, we could open curly braces, and then we would have the field name, so name, and then colon, and then followed by value, and then closing the braces. And if you were to have multiple parameters that you want to forward, you would just have comma and then the next event. So again, name 2, colon, value 2. and again, curly braces closed. So again, this is an advanced setting that you should only use when you know what you're doing and when you definitely have the need for it. It allows you to basically forward additional information, which you could then use in, for example, custom conversions within Facebook. If you don't know what custom conversions are, I recommend that you watch the tutorial for our regular Facebook pixel power script, because there I'm covering that topic also in more detail. Now, the last setting that we have here is if we want to track the event value base. That's something we already had a couple of times. So you can just select yes or no, and it would then track the event with a value of $1 for example, or whichever other currency you have selected, or it won't. So in this case, I'm going to select no here for value-based tracking, and I'm just going to click here to save my settings. Now, when we go back here to our funnel step and I refresh the page, and we head to the Facebook's Events Manager, you can already see that we have our view content and page view event for the page reload, and precisely 5 seconds later we have the view 5 seconds event here with our name and value and name to and value, plus the additional parameters like funnel ID, step ID, and page ID that CF PowerScripts always forwards to Facebook. So that's another use case for the Facebook Custom Events PowerScript that CF PowerScripts offers. And you might be wondering why you want to maybe trigger a different event depending on how long the user is on your funnel. The easiest use case would, for example, be retargeting. If you retarget people just because they visited the URL, it will not be as effective as if you retarget people that spent at least 5 seconds on your page, because everybody that spent less than 5 seconds on your page clearly had zero interest in your funnel and simply closed the page. And you could obviously improve the quality of your retargeting further. For example, let's say you have a 2-minute sales video on your page, and so you set up this event to track when the user spends, I don't know, 30 seconds on your page or 45 seconds on your page and so on. And you would basically know that those people are more likely to have watched at least some part of your sales video, or at least read some of the copy on your page. But again, that's not all the Facebook Custom Events PowerScript has to offer, and we're going back to CF PowerScripts to look into other use cases. So for that, I'm going to again click on Edit here for the Custom Events PowerScript. I'm just going to click on Add Event here, and the next thing we can trigger is Trigger After Scroll X Pixels. So we're going to select this and call it Scrolled 1000 PX. And I'm going to enter here 1000 pixel, this time with no custom parameters, but let's say this one here is value based. So we're going to click on Save and go back to the funnel page, refresh the page. And in the Events Manager, we can already see after a few seconds the new page view and view content event appear. And when we now start to scroll, I'm not sure if we have 1000 pixels on this funnel page, but we can see when we go into the Event Manager that we actually have. So first of all, we triggered the view 5 seconds event, and second of all, we triggered the scroll 1000 pixel after actually scrolling far enough down. However, there might not be as many use cases as you might think for this specific event, because if you imagine that a user opens your funnel on his mobile phone, he will have a certain content after scrolling 500 pixels, for example. However, if you then open the same funnel step on a desktop or on your laptop, you will actually see different content after 500 pixels. So again, this event is very specific, and you have to think about how and if you can use it in your funnels. However, with that we proceed, because there are still other events that we can trigger with the Facebook Custom Events PowerScript. So we go back to CF PowerScripts and again click on Edit for the Custom Events PowerScript. There we again click on Add Event, and this time from the drop-down we click Trigger After Scroll Percentage, and we'll call this one Scroll 50%. And a setting, therefore we would enter 50 here since we're scrolling 50%. No optional parameters, and we're going to trigger this one also value based. Click on Save, go to our funnel step, scroll up all the way, refresh the page, head to the Events Manager, where by the way we forgot to check, but we can do this right now. The scroll 1000 pixel event also tracked successfully value based. And we can see now the page load has been complete. We have the new page view, the new view content, and the new view 5 seconds event successfully recorded within the Events Manager. Now if we go back to the funnel and we start to scroll, and we should roughly here be at 50% of the page. So I'm going to just scroll a little bit further, and we go back to the Events Manager. we can see that we have the scroll 50% event trigger, value-based with $1 and as always with all the additional parameters. Now, just for the sake of it, if we scroll the rest of the way, we should also trigger the 1000 pixel milestone and trigger that event as well. Now, last but not least, there's one more event that we can trigger with the Facebook custom event power script, and that is based on a certain element, section, or row on your page. So we go back to CF Power Scripts. Again, we edit the custom events power script. We click on add event, and here now we select trigger once element is visible, and we call this one, for example, I don't know, section A visible. And we'll have to go to the ClickFunnels page editor for that one. Thankfully, we already have a page open here, although it's not the right one, so I'm gonna close this. Select the sales page that we're currently using for this video, click on edit, and then within the page editor we can pick any section, so the green elements, rows, so the blue elements, or specific elements. So for example, I could pick, or let's compare real quick, if we scroll up all the way, I already see the timer, so that doesn't make sense. But if we pick something further down, let's take, for example, this button here specifically, or again, I could pick the row or the section, and then go to the settings and to the hashtag icon for get CSS info, and we just copy the CSS ID selector here, go to CF Power Scripts and paste that into the settings field. Now, we don't want to add any additional parameters, and we don't want this to track value-based, and we click on save. Go back to the funnels tab, make sure we are scrolled up all the way, refresh the page, go to the events manager until we see our page view and view content event here show up. And now we can start to scroll down, and I'm gonna try to time it. Okay, so that's the headline of the newsletter section. And when we go to the events manager, we see the scroll 50% and scroll 1000 and our view 5 seconds, but we don't see the event that we just set up. If we scroll just a little bit further, so the button becomes visible, and we go to the events manager, we can see section A visible now triggered and fired the event without the value. So this way you can basically trigger different events depending on how far on your page the user scrolled down. You could then, if you track it value-based, again create lookalike audiences based on that. However, you can also use this to improve your retargeting campaigns. If we go back to our demo page here, and for example, if I, for example, were to configure an event when the user sees the logo down here or the entire footer section, I know that that visitor looked at the entire page. I don't know for sure if he read everything or if he just scrolled down, but I know that he actually went down here. Now, I can create an audience based on people that triggered this event, and I can then create an audience based on people that saw this area, based on people that saw this area, and so on. Now, for my retargeting efforts, if I want to retarget people that basically lost interest when they read this product information headline, I simply would set up my audience to include people that triggered this event, but exclude people that also triggered this event. So therefore, I will only have people in the audience that visited my funnel and scrolled down to this area so it became visible, but did not scroll down to get that button visible, which means whatever was visible here likely did not convince them and they closed the page. So depending on the content that I have in this area, my retargeting ad could try to provide the argument or the right copy to convince whichever objection people might have after reading this specific passage on your funnel step. And obviously, unlike with the scroll after a certain amount of pixel event, it does not matter in this case if the user has a 50-inch screen or a small mobile phone screen where he's looking at your funnel, because only once he reaches a certain element, row, or section will the event trigger. So you will always know almost with certainty precisely which part of your content your user or visitor actually saw before he left your page, which in return should help you create better retargeting ads, because you will be able to tailor the copy of your retargeting ads specifically to the objection or part of the content that got the user to leave your page and lose interest. And that's pretty much it. So the Facebook Custom Events Power Script offers you a lot of features to improve the tracking and track additional data on your funnel steps. without actually having to add any kind of custom code. It's obviously up to you to decide which of those custom events actually make sense on your funnel and how you can include them in your ad campaigns, so to create specific audiences based on those custom events, for example. And that's all the Facebook Custom Events Power Script has to offer at the time of recording this video. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't forget you can always just press the support button in the bottom right corner within CF Power Scripts to reach out to us directly. Or if you're watching this video on YouTube, you can just leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and even more so, thanks for using CF Power Scripts. See you in one of my other tutorials. Till then, bye bye.